Hello, and welcome. So, today I am getting into the Labors of Hercules, an astrological interpretation by Alice A. Bailey. And I'm really stoked that this book came in. And when I opened it up, there was this beautiful little prayer. Well, it feels like a prayer. I love the words on it. I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to read it again because that's how the book starts. All right. So it says, The Great Invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of man. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Yeah, dude. I like it. I like it a lot. So the Labors of Hercules, the 12 Labors of Hercules, an astrological interpretation. This is so fascinating. Do I read it again? Okay, I'll read it again. Oh, Lord. All right. The Great Invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center, where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. There's a lot of capitalizations in there, too. The above invocation or prayer does not belong to any person or group, but to all humanity. The beauty and the strength of this invocation lies in its simplicity and in its expression of certain central truths which all men innately and normally accept. The truth of the existence of a basic intelligence to whom we vaguely give the name of God. The truth that behind all outer seeming, the motivating power of the universe is love. The truth that a great individuality came to earth, called by Christians the Christ, and embodied that love so that we could understand. The truth that both love and intelligence are effects of what is called the will of God. And finally, the self evident truth that only through humanity itself can the divine plan work out. Alice A. Bailey. Yeah, I like that. So here we go. Page 1. The Zodiac. The presiding one looked forth upon the sons of men, who are the sons of God. He saw their light and where they stood upon the way which leads back to the heart of God. The way sweeps in a circle through the 12 great gates, and cycle after cycle, the gates are opened and the gates are shut. The sons of God, who are the sons of men, march on. It's like the turning. Dim is the light at first, selfish the trend of human aspiration, and dark the deeds resultant. Slowly men learn, and in learning, pass between the pillars of the gates time and again. Dull is the understanding, but in the halls of discipline, found in each section of the circle's cosmic sweep, the truth is slowly grasped. The needed lessons learned, the nature purified and taught until the cross is seen, that fixed and waiting cross which crucifies the sons of men, stretched out on the crosses of those who serve and save. From out the mass of men, One man stood forth in ancient days and caught the great presiding elder's watching eye, he who eternally presides within the council chamber of the Lord. He turned to one who stood close at his hand and said, "Who is that soul upon the way of life, whose light can now be dimly seen?" Quickly the answer came, "That is the soul who on the way of life experiences and seeks the clear light which shines from the high place. Let him proceed upon his way, but watch his steps." The swiftly passing aeons ran their course. The great wheel turned and, turning, brought the seeking soul upon the way. Later, there came a day when the presiding one, within the council chamber of the Lord, again drew to the circle of his radiant life the seeking soul. "Whose is this soul upon the way of high endeavor, whose radiance dimly shineth forth?" Came the reply, "A soul who seeks the light of understanding, a struggling soul. Tell him from me to return the outer way, and then to travel round the circle. Then will he find the object of his search. Watch o'er his steps, and when he has an understanding heart, an eager mind, and skillful hand, bring him to me." Again the centuries passed. The great wheel turned, and, in turning, carried all the sons of men, who are the sons of God, upon their way. And as these centuries passed, a group of men emerged who slowly turned the other way. They found the way. They passed the gates and struggled towards the mountaintop and towards the place of death and sacrifice. The watching teacher saw a man emerge from out his crowd, mount the fixed cross, demanding deeds to do, service to render unto God and man, and willingness to travel the way to God. He stood before the great presiding one who works within the council chamber of the Lord and heard a word go forth. "Obey thy teacher on the way. Prepare for the last tests. Pass through each gate, and in the sphere which they reveal and guard, perform the labor which befits their sphere. Learn thus the lesson, and begin with love to serve the men of earth." Then to the teacher went the final word. "Prepare the candidate. Give him his labors to perform, and place his name upon the tablets of the living way." The Tibetan. The foreword. The purpose of this study. The intense interest evinced. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I got to look it up. Evinced. Evinced. Is it like convinced? Let's find out. Okay. Evinced. Boop a doop a doop. Hey, where are we at? Maybe I should just open a new one, eh? There we go. So it was like the fourth word in or something. Yeah, evinced. Evinced? 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 Reveal the presence, equality or feeling. Evinced definition.
Events.
Evince.
Events.
Evince.
Events.
Evince. Okay. Past tense. Evinced. Past particle. Oh, participle. Well, I don't know. That's not why we're here, but participle. Can't even click on it. I'll investigate that another time. Okay, so reveal the presence of. To reveal the presence of a quality or feeling. The intense interest evinced. Cool. Okay, I need beverage. Evinced.
Events.
Bollocks. Evinced. Evinced. Events. The intense entrance evinced.
Events.
Evinced. Okay. Back to YouTube. Okay. Evinced. Evinced. What the? Okay. The intense interest evinced at this time in the subject of the spiritual life is in itself the warrant for such a study as this series of articles proposes. Felt. Evinced at this time in the subject of the spiritual life is in itself the warrant for such a study as this series of articles proposes. In defiance of the fact that academic and theological religion has no longer its ancient appeal, and in spite of the revolt against organized religion, the urge towards spiritual realities has never been so keen as now. The day of empirical evidence on a large scale is now with us, and men and women everywhere are refusing any longer to believe and blindly accept because they are determined to know. Acceptance of imposed dogmas is now giving place to experiment and a divine self determination based on a realized unity with the life in which we live and move and have our being, is taking the place of credulity and superstition. The problem of every teacher today is to discover new ways in which to express the old truths, and so present the ancient formulas for spiritual development that they will acquire new and vivid life. I'm going to read that again. The problem of every teacher today is to discover new ways in which to express the old truths, and so present the ancient formulas for spiritual development that they will acquire new and vivid life. In both hemispheres, there have been many written books on the subject of the path of discipleship, the path of holiness, and the path of illumination. The restatement of the problems of that universal path and of its inherent difficulties is not warranted unless the application can be modern and practical. It must indicate the inclusiveness of the goal. Once those problems have been surmounted, and must avoid the tiresome reiteration of that basic rule of life, which has been expressed in the two words, be good. Again and again, we have been told that we must overcome the lure of the world, the flesh, and the devil. There has been built up in the mind of the Western aspirant a feeling that the path is necessarily one of misery, of self abnegation, and of endless distress. His attitude is one of active endurance until such time as he mysteriously and miraculously breaks through into a world of peace and plenty, wherein all troubles come to an end. The flesh ceases to annoy, and the devil comes to an untimely end. And this is the reward of a meek submission to the will of an inscrutable creator. Right? There is, however, dawning on the human consciousness a growing realization of innate divinity and that man is in very truth made in the image of God and one in nature with his Father in heaven. The idea of purpose and of plan is being grasped, and the entire attitude of the aspirant towards life is rapidly changing. Surely it should now be possible to gain such a synthetic picture of the progress of the soul from ignorance to wisdom, from material desire to spiritual achievement, that the end may be visioned from the beginning, and intelligent cooperation with sole purpose take the place of blind endeavor. When this comes about, the pilgrim can proceed upon his way with his face turned towards the light, and irradiated with joy. It's one of those double words, like from one line to the next. Oh, Lordy Lord. All right. The story of the dramatic experiences of that great and ancient son of God, Hercules or Heracles, will be found to give us just such a synthetic picture. It leaves untouched no phase in the life of the aspirant and yet links him up with cosmic enterprise. Its theme will be found to be so inclusive that all of us, struggling in our present modern life, can make application to ourselves of the tests and trials, the failures and achievements of this heroic figure, who strove centuries ago towards the same goal as we do. Through a reading of his history, fresh interest may be evoked in the mind of the bewildered aspirant, and such a picture painted of universal sequential development and destiny that he will go forward with fresh courage. We shall trace the story of Hercules and endeavor to show how he, in his 12 labors, played the part of the aspirant upon the path of discipleship. On it, he undertook certain tasks, symbolic in nature, and passed through certain episodes and events which portray for all time the nature of the training and attainments which characterize the man who is nearing liberation. Cool. He stands for the incarnated yet not perfected Son of God, who definitely takes the lower nature in hand and willingly subjects it to the discipline which will eventually produce the emergence of divinity. Out of an erring but seemingly earnest human being, intelligently aware of the work to be accomplished, a world savior is formed. Two great and dramatic stories have been held constantly before the eyes of men down the ages. In the 12 labors of Hercules, that path of discipleship is depicted, and his experiences, preparatory to the great concluding cycle of initiation, meet with a ready response from every aspiring man. In the life and work of Jesus the Christ, that radiant and perfected Son of God who has entered for us within the veil, leaving us an example that we shall follow his steps. That was a quote. We have portrayed the 5 stages of the path of initiation, which are the climaxing episodes for which the 12 labors have prepared the disciple. The oracle has spoken, and down the ages the word has sounded forth. Man, know thyself. This knowledge is the outstanding attainment upon the path of discipleship, and the reward of all the work done by Hercules. The nature of discipleship. It might be of value here if we considered briefly the nature of discipleship. It is a word in constant use among aspirants in Christian lands, as in the Oriental religions. Discipleship could be defined as the final stage of the path of evolution, and as that period in a man's experience in which he is definitely self conscious. It is the stage in which he knowingly pledges himself to impose the will of the soul, which is essentially the will of God, upon the lower nature. Upon this path, he submits himself to a forcing process so that the flower of the soul can unfold more quickly. The inevitability of human perfection underlies his willingness to make the attempt to tread the path. This perfection can be attained in 2 ways. It can be the result of slow and steady evolutionary growth, carried forward under nature's laws, cycle after cycle, until gradually the hidden God can be seen in man and in the universe. Or it can be the result of systemized application and discipline on the part of the aspirant, producing a more rapid unfoldment of the power and life of the soul. In one analysis of discipleship, it has been defined as a psychic resolvent, which eats away all dross and leaves only the pure gold behind. It is a process of refining, of sublimation, and of transmutation, carried steadily forward until at length the mount of transfiguration and of illumination is attained. The hidden mysteries and the forces latent in human beings need to be discovered and require to be utilized in a divine manner and in line with divine purpose, intelligently apprehended. When they have thus been utilized, the disciple finds himself en rapport with the universal and similar divine energies and powers underlying the operations of the natural world. Thus, he becomes a worker under the plan of evolution and a cooperator. There is a dash. Cooperator with the great cloud of witnesses. Wow, this is blowing my mind. Who through the power of their onlooking and the result of their attainment constitute the thrones, principalities, and powers, through the medium of which the one life guides all creation onward to a glorious consummation. Such is the goal towards the Hercules Such is the goal towards which Hercules worked, and such is the goal before humanity as a whole, whose ultimate group achievement will be brought about by the many individual perfections. Astrological connections or connotations. A secondary object of this study is to present an aspect of astrology which will differ from that usually expressed. We shall trace the story of Hercules as he passed through the 12 signs of the zodiac. In each sign, he expressed its characteristics, and in each sign, he achieved some fresh knowledge of himself, and through that knowledge demonstrated the power of the sign and acquired the gifts which the sign conferred. In each of the signs, we shall find him surmounting his natural tendencies, controlling and governing his destiny, and demonstrating the fact that the stars incline but do not control. Boom! Dude. Hey, Fiona. Hey, welcome in. Welcome in. Welcome all. I see you. There's some lurkers here. You all are welcome. Now, later, whenevers. This is awesome. I'm just actually going to read that sentence again. In each of the signs, we shall find him surmounting his natural tendencies, controlling and governing his destiny, and demonstrating the fact that the stars incline but do not control. Like the destiny or the difference between fate and destiny, which I find myself pondering quite often. Oh my gosh, we're still in the forward. It's already badass. Okay. The form of astrology, which will, I believe, in time supersede the ordinary kind dealing with horoscopes, is that synthetic presentation of cosmic happenings which have their reflection on our planetary life, in the life of humanity as a whole, and in the life of the individual, who is ever the microcosm of the macrocosm. This type of astrology confines its attention primarily to the unfolding of the plan of the ages. This, history reveals in a small way, as far as humanity is concerned, and a larger study of the times and seasons may bring to us a wider understanding of God's purposes. There is an immense past behind humanity. Aeons and aeons have come and gone. The wheel of existence turns continuously, and ever the scroll of life unrolls, and we are carried forward on the impetus of a returning force towards a newer aspect of the goal and a wider vision and realization. Concentration upon the personal horoscope and the intense interest evinced by individuals in their own petty affairs may be natural and normal, but it is nevertheless myopic. The consciousness that we are integral parts of a greater whole and that knowledge of the divine sum total can alone reveal the vaster purpose. These are the ideas that must eventually supersede our personal concentrations. Our small life histories must disappear in the larger picture. Hercules astrologically entered the life history of every aspirant and demonstrated the part which the unit must play in the eternal enterprise. The great Eastern teacher has expressed in connection with the zodiac and astrology this suggestive thought, quote, that astrology is a science and a coming science is true. That astrology is a science and a coming science is true. That astrology in its highest aspect and its true interpretation will eventually enable man to focus his understanding to the function rightly is equally true. That in the revelations that astrology will make in time to come will be found the secret of the true coordinate between soul and form is also correct, but that astrology has not yet been discovered. Too much is overlooked and too little known to make astrology the exact science that many claim it to be. This is making my heart pound so hard, right? The claim will be fulfilled at some future date, but the time is not yet. Astrology is now practiced. Astrology as now practice is doomed to break down, owing to the rapidity with which souls are controlling their personalities. The casting of the horoscope of the soul will not be based on our three-dimensional knowledge, for the laws of time and space have no hold over the soul. Ooh! My heart is racing. So that's from Esoteric Astrology, which I think is another book that Alice A. Bailey authored. I don't know for sure. I'm looking at a list of her books in the front right now here. Esoteric Astrology. Well, it's not on this list, so I don't know, but that's from Esoteric Astrology. Oh, wait a second. Did I just... A great Eastern teacher has expressed in connection with the zodiac and astrology this suggestive thought. That's vague. Does it say who? Who said that? Okay, well, moving right along. Hey, Bombaclat, welcome. Awesome. We will therefore, in this study, deal with an astrology which will be non-mathematical and which will have no relation to the casting of horoscopes. It will concern itself with the 12 types of energy, by means of which consciousness of the divine reality is brought about through the medium of form. Holy shitballs, right? In no distant heaven and in no subjective state did Hercules arrive at this knowledge. In the physical body, handicapped and limited by the tendencies conferred on him by the sign in which he performed the labor, he attained understanding of his own essential divinity. Through the overcoming of form and the subjugation of matter, a picture is given us of an unfolding divine self-realization. In the study, therefore, of Hercules, the disciple, and of Christ, the world's Savior, we have an entire pictorial presentation of the final stages of unfoldment which lie ahead of us all. The 5 great initiations, as portrayed for us in the history of Jesus the Christ, are not dealt with here, but from the subject of another book, and that's called From Bethlehem to Calvary. As we study the story of Hercules and go with him through his 12 labors, passing around the great zodiac of the heavens, we will approach it from 2 angles, that of the individual aspirant and that of humanity as a whole. It is now possible to regard the human family as having reached, practically en masse, the stage of the aspirant, the stage of the intelligent seeker, the stage of the man who, having developed his mind and coordinated his abilities, mental, emotional, and physical, has exhausted the interests of the phenomenal world and is looking for a way out into a wider realm of awareness and into a more sure sphere of undertakings. This stage has always been expressed by the advanced individuals down the ages, but never before has the human race itself been in this condition. Herein lies the wonder of past achievement, and herein lies the hour of present opportunity. Damn, Bean, this is awesome. Words. Herein lies the wonder of past achievement, and herein lies the hour of present opportunity. Raw! Dude, that quickens my heart. The world disciple today. The test to which Hercules willingly subjected himself and the labors into which he sometimes thoughtlessly rushed are those which are possible to many thousands now. It will become apparent also how curiously applicable to modern conditions are the various details of the dramatic and oft-times amusing story of his efforts upon the path of ascension. Each one of us is an embryo Hercules, and each one of us faces the identical labors. Each of us has the same goal to achieve, the same circle of the zodiac to encompass. The work to be done has for its prime objective the elimination of all fear and the control of the natural forces of the human nature. These Hercules, these Hercules has to face in every possible combination before he climbs the mount of initiation in Capricorn and becomes the server of humanity. Completion and selfish objectives have to be completely changed and eliminated, and we shall find Hercules learning the lesson that to grasp anything for the separated self is no part of the mission of a son of God. I have to read that again. Competition and selfish objectives have to be completely changed and eliminated, and we shall find Hercules learning the lesson that to grasp anything for the separated self is no part of the mission of a son of God. Hmm. He has to find himself as an individual, only to discover that individualism must be sacrificed intelligently to the good of the people. He discovers likewise that personal greed has no place in the life of the aspirant who is seeking liberation from the ever recurring cycle of existence and the constant crucifixion upon the cross of matter. Damn, it's like each sentence just keeps packing a punch. The characteristics of the man immersed in form life and under the rule of matter are fear, individualism, competition, and greed. These have to give place to spiritual confidence, cooperation, group awareness, and selfishness. This is the lesson that Hercules brings to us, and this is the demonstration of the life of God, which is being wrought out in the creative process, and which flowers forth more beautifully each time that the life of God makes its sweep around the zodiac, which the astronomers tell us takes approximately 25,000 years to accomplish. Hey, I like that they said, they had that little, okay, anyways. This is the story of the cosmic Christ, crucified upon the fixed cross of the heavens. This is the story of the historical Christ, given us in the gospel story and enacted 2,000 years ago in Palestine. This is the story of the individual Christ, crucified upon the cross of matter and incarnated in each human being, God incarnate in matter. This is the story of our solar system, the story of our planet, the story of the human being. Thus, as we look at the starry heavens above, we have eternally pictured for us this great drama, which the story of Hercules elucidates in detail for the aspirant. Key thoughts. Trace! Yay! I love you. This is so good. I love it. Welcome, y'alls. 4 key thoughts can be given here which express the underlying purpose of the creative process and the objective of both the cosmic Christ and of the individual aspirant. I'm struggling over that word here. They give us a clue to the working out of the plan. Taken together, they embody the entire story of the relationship of spirit and matter, of life and form, and of soul and body. First, nature expresses invisible energies through visible forms. Back of the objective, Back of the objective world of phenomena, human or solar, small or great, organic or inorganic, lies a subjective world of forces which is responsible for the outer form. Behind the outer material shell is to be found a vast empire of being, and it is into this world of living energies that both religion and science are now penetrating. Everything outer and tangible is a symbol of inner creative forces, and it is this idea that underlies all symbology. A symbol is an outer and visible form of an inner and spiritual reality. It is with this interplay of the outer form and the inner life that Hercules wrestles. He knew himself to be the form, the symbol, for the dominance of the lower material nature made for the dominance of the lower material nature made its presence felt with the facility of age-long expression. At the same time, he knew that his problem was to express spiritual being and energy. He had to know, in fact, and in experience, that he was God, immanent and nature, immanent in nature, and he was the self in close relation to the not self. He had to experiment with the law of cause and effect, and this form the standpoint of the initiator of the causes in order to produce intelligent effects. Through the 12 signs of the zodiac he passed, struggling to work subjectively and trying to reject the lure and the pull of the outer tangible form. The second key, though, can be expressed in the words, "The conception of a concealed deity lies at the heart of all religions." This is the mystic realization and the object of the search that humanity has carried on down the ages. The exponents of the world religions have embodied in their teaching one aspect of the search, accepting the fact of God as a basic premise, and with their heart's love and devotion and worship, proving the reality of his existence. The testimony of the mystics of all time and races is so vast that it now in itself constitutes a body of proven facts and cannot be gainsaid. So, I mean, and cannot be gainsaid. Does that just mean like it cannot be discounted? It cannot, let's find out. Gain dash said. I wonder if it's one word. It's just, it goes from one line to the next. So let's just try it without a dash first.
Events.
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 Okay, events. Reveal the presence of a quality or feeling.
Events.
Okay. Gainsaid. Uh-oh. Deity. Oh, wait, yeah, gainsaid. To declare to be untrue or invalid, contradict, oppose, did not dare to gainsay the king. So gainsay, it's like past tense. Gainsay, gainsaid. Okay. Deny or contradict. Yeah. Cool. Gainsay, gainsaid. Cool. Okay. The testimony of the mystics of all time and races is so vast that it now, in itself, constitutes a body of proven facts and cannot be gainsay. The scientific investigators have sought through a knowledge of the form to find truth and have brought us to a position of wide knowledge and at the same time to a paralleling concept of our profound ignorance. We have learned much in the outer garment of God through physics, chemistry, biology, and other sciences, but we have struggled into a realm where all appears to be the hypothesis and inference. All that we surely know is that all forms are aspects of energy, that there is an interplay and an impact of energies upon our planet, that the planet is itself an energy unit composed of a multitude of energy units, and that man himself is likewise a composite bundle of forces and moving in a world of forces. This is where science so wonderfully has led us, and this is where the astrologer, the occultist, the idealist, and the mystic also meet and testify to a concealed deity, to a living being, to a universal mind, and to a central energy. Bam, dude, right? In the unfolding drama of the heavens, in the conclusions of the scientific inquirer, in the mathematical computations of the astrologer, pardon me, and in the testimony of the mystic, however, we can see a steadily emerging manifestation of this concealed divinity. Little by little, through the study of history, of philosophy, and of comparative religion, we see the plan of that deity becoming significantly apparent. In the passage of the sun through the 12 signs of the zodiac, we can see the marvelous organization of the plan, the focusing of the energies, and the growth of the tendency towards divinity. Now, at last, in the 20th century, objective and subjective have become so closely blended and merged that it is almost impossible to say where one begins and another ends. The veil that hides the concealed deity is wearing thin, and the work of those who have achieved knowledge, the program of the Christ and of his church, the plans of the hidden band of world workers, the rishis and the occult hierarchy of our planet, is now focused upon leading humanity on the path to discipleship and training many of the more advanced so that they can become the knowers and initiates of the new age. Thus, men will pass out of the hall of learning into the hall of wisdom, from the realm of the unreal to the real, and from the outer darkness of phenomenal existence into the light that shines always in the kingdom of spirit. The third key thought gives us a clue to the method. I think I started the last one. I thought it said though. The third key thought gives us a clue to the method. Down the ages, the words have sounded forth, quote, I am he who awakens the silent beholder, end quote. It has become apparent to seekers in all fields that within all forms there is an urge to intelligent expression and a certain livingness which we call consciousness, and which in the human family takes the form of self-awareness. This self-awareness, when truly developed, enables a man to discover that the concealed deity in the universe is identical in nature, though vastly greater in degree and consciousness with the concealed deity within himself. Man then can become consciously the onlooker, the beholder, the perceiver. He is no longer identified with the matter aspect, but is the one who uses it as a medium of expression. When this stage is reached, the great labors start, and the warfare is consciously in progress. The man is torn in two directions. Habit entices him to identify himself with form. The new understanding impels him to identify himself with the soul. A reorientation then takes place, and a new and self-directed effort is initiated, which is portrayed for us in the story of Hercules, the sun god. The moment that the intellectual altitude has been achieved, the silent beholder awakens into activity. Hercules starts upon his labors. The human being, hitherto swept along on the urge of the evolutionary tide, excuse me, and governed by desire for experience and for material possessions, comes under the control of the divine indweller. He emerges as the aspirant, reverses himself, and begins to work through the 12 signs of the zodiac, only now working from Aries to Pisces via Taurus, anti-clockwise, instead of working in the ordinary human retrogressive fashion, from Aries to Taurus via Pisces, clockwise. Let me take a drink of water. Maybe that'll help. We'll see. Finally, the changing focus of the life and the steady application to the 12 labors in the 12 signs enables the disciple to become the triumphant victor. Then he can comprehend the significance of the fourth key thought and can exclaim in unison with the cosmic deity. Listen to this great secret. Although I am above birth and rebirth, or law, being the Lord of all there is, for all emanateth from me. Still do I will to appear in my own universe, and am therefore born by my power and thought and will. Oh, the Bhagavad Gita, as compiled and adapted by Yogi Ramacharaka. Balls, it's so famous and I don't know how to say it. Ramacharaka. I apologize. Oh no. That's a book I need to make my way through. All right. Hercules the disciple, the myth. He stood before his teacher. Dimly, he understood that a crisis was upon him, leading to change of speech, of attitude and plan. The teacher looked him o'er and liked him well. Your name? He asked and waited for the answer. Heracles, the answer came, or Hercules. They tell me it means Hera's rare glory, the radiance and effulgence of the soul. What is the soul, old teacher? Oh, teacher, tell me truth. That soul of yours you shall discover as you do your task and find and use the nature which is yours. Who are your parents? Tell me this, my son. My father is divine. I know him not, except that, in myself, I know I am his son. My mother is an earthly one. I know her well, and she has made me what you see. Likewise, O teacher of my life, I am also one of twins. There is another one, like unto me. I also know him well, yet know him not. One is of earth, thus earthly. The other is a son of God. What of your training, Hercules, my son? What can you do, and how have you been taught? In all accomplishments, I am proficient. I am well taught, well trained, well guided, and well known. All books I know, all arts and sciences as well. The labors of the open field are known to me, besides the skill of those who can afford to travel and know men. I know myself as one who thinks and feels and lives. One thing, O teacher, I must tell you, and thus deceive you not. The fact is, not so long ago, I slew all those who taught me in the past. I killed my teachers, and in my search for liberty, I now stand free. I seek to know myself, within myself, and through myself. My son, that was a deed of wisdom, and now that you can stand free, proceed to labor now, remembering as you do that at the final turning of the wheel will come the mystery of death. Forget this not. What is your age, my son? I had turned 18 summers when I slew the lion, and hence I wear its skin. Again at 21 I met my bride. Today I stand before you, trebly free, free from my early teachers, free from my fear of fear, and free indeed from all desire. Boast not, my son, but prove to me the nature of this freedom which you sense. Again in Leo, will you meet the lion? What will you do? Again in Gemini, the teachers whom you slew, will cross your path. Have you indeed left them behind? What will you do? Again in Scorpio, will you wrestle with desire? Will you stand free, or will the serpent meet you with his wiles and pull you down to earth? What will you do? Prepare to prove your words and liberty? Boast not, my son, but prove to me your freedom and your deep desire to serve. The teacher sat in silence, and Hercules withdrew and faced the first great gate. Then the presiding one, who sat within the council chamber of the Lord, spoke to the teacher and bade him call the gods to witness the endeavor and start the new disciple on the way. The teachers called. The gods replied. They came and gave to Hercules their gifts and many words of sage advice, knowing the tasks ahead and the peril of the way. Minerva handed him a robe, woven by herself, a robe that fitted well, of beauty rare and fine. He put it on with triumph and with pride, exulted in his youth. He had to prove himself. A golden breastplate, Vulcan forged for Hercules to guard his heart, the source of life and strength. This golden gift was girdled on, and shielded thus, the new disciple felt secure. He had yet to prove his strength. Neptune arrived with his horses twain and handed them, in leash, to Hercules. Straight from the place of waters they came, of beauty rare and proven strength, and Hercules was pleased, for he had yet to prove his power to ride the horses twain. With graceful speech and brilliant wit came Mercury, carrying a sword of rare design, which he preferred in a oh, which he proffered in a silver sheath to Hercules. He strapped it on the thigh of Hercules, bidding him keep it sharp and bright. It must divide and cut, said Mercury, with precision and acquired skill must move. And Hercules, with joyous words, tendered his thanks, and had yet to prove his boasted skill. With blaring trumpets and the rush of stamping feet, the chariot of the sun god flashed. Apollo came, and with his light and charm cheered Hercules, giving him a bow of light. Through 9 wide open gates must the disciple pass before he had acquired sufficient skill to draw that bow. It took him all that time to prove himself the archer. Yet when the gifts were preferred, Hercules took it, confident of power, a power as yet unproven. And thus he stood equipped. The gods stood round his teacher and watched his antics and his joy. He played before the gods and showed his prowess, boasting of his strength. Suddenly he paused and pondered long, then gave the horses to a friend to hold, the sword to still another, and the bow unto a third. Then, running, disappeared into the nearby wood. The gods awaited his return, wondering and puzzled over his strange conduct. Back from the wood he came, bearing aloft a club of wood, cut from a stalwart living tree. "This is my own," he cried. "None gave it to me. This I can use with power. O gods, watch my high deeds." And then, and only then, the teacher said, "Go forth to labor." The Tibetan. That is powerful. And I got to look up that word. Proffered, Proffered. The Does it mean preferred? Is that what it is? Let's find out. To offer something by holding it out, or to offer advice or an opinion. Oh, yeah, it is. It's 2 F's.
Proffer.
Proffer. Proffered. Proffered. Cool. Which he proffered, which means that he proffered, to hold out something to someone for acceptance. Proffered. To offer advice or an opinion. Proffered. Which he proffered or took or handed out. He handed it out. Yeah, which he proffered. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Cool. Proffered. I like it. Okay, let's get a sip of water. Okay. Elaboration of the myth. We come now to a consideration of Hercules himself. It is a most interesting story, and one that has been treated by many writers. Discussion as to the details of his life and argument as to the sequence of events are not any part of our objective. The various accounts differ in details, according to the bias of the historian, and can be studied in the many classical histories and dictionaries. We will deal here only with the 12 famous labors, and of them we read, quote, Hercules, by the will of Jupiter, was subjected to the power of Eurystheus, and obliged to obey him in every demand. He consulted the oracle of Apollo and was told that he must be subservient for 12 years to the will of Eurystheus. Eurystheus. I bet that's how it is. Eurystheus. Subservient for 12 years to the will of Eurystheus, in compliance with the commands of Jupiter, and that after he had achieved the most celebrated labors, he should be translated to the gods. So he started off upon his career, and as the disciple under command of his soul, undertook the 12 labors, performing each of them in one of the zodiacal signs. He therefore presents every disciple who seeks to tread the path and demonstrate his control over the forces of his nature. And he likewise represents the point at which humanity now finds itself. His early name was Alcides. Alcides. Alkeides. Alcides. Alcides, which was changed to Hercules after he had undergone a strange experience, and before he started forth upon his labors. The name Hercules was originally Heracles, which signifies the glory of Hera. Hera represents Psyche, or the soul, so his name embodied his mission, which was to manifest forth in active work on the physical plane the glory and the power of his innate divinity. One of the ancient scriptures of India says, by mastery of the binding life comes radiance. And it was this mastery of the imprisoning form which was the glorious consummation of all the undertakings of Hercules. We are told that he had a divine father and an earthly mother, and so, as with all sons of God, we find the same basic symbology emerging. They typify in their persons the essential duality of God in manifestation, of life in form, of soul and body, and of spirit and matter. Thus, duality is the glory of humanity and also constitutes the problem which every human being has to solve. Father Spirit and Mother Matter meet together in man, and the work of the disciple is to withdraw himself from the bonds of the mother and thus respond to the love of the Father. Hmm. This duality is also brought out in the fact that he was one of twins. We read that one twin was born of an earthly father, and that the other was born that was that was the son of Zeus. What? This is the great realization that comes to every developed and self aware human being. He finds himself conscious of two aspects which meet in his nature. There is the well developed and highly organized personality through which he habitually expresses himself, mental, emotional, and physical, with all three parts coordinated into an integrated unit. Then there is the spiritual nature, with its impulses and intuitions, its constant pull towards things vital and divine, and the consequent inner warfare which grows out of this realized duality. Hercules was the disciple, living in a physical body, but capable at times, like St. Paul, of being caught up in the third heaven and having intercourse with divine beings. In this condition, he visioned the plan, knew what he had to do, and perceived the reality of the spiritual life. Was there a word up here that I wanted to look at? There is also one interesting little fact in the story of his life, which has a bearing on this same truth. While still an infant, we are told that Hercules killed his twin. Oh, that's what was catching me up. It wasn't a word. It was just the idea that he had a twin from a different father. Okay. I mean, um he was no longer a divided entity, no longer a duality, but soul and body formed one unity. This indicates always the stage of the disciple. He has made the at one he has made the at one ment and knows himself to be soul in body and not he and knows himself to be soul in body and not soul and body. Soul in body, not soul and body. And this realization has now to color all his actions. Yeah. Whilst in the cradle, history relates the lusty infant killed two serpents, again emphasizing duality. In this act, he forecast the future in which he demonstrated that the physical nature no longer controlled, but that he could strangle the serpent of matter and that the great illusion no longer had him imprisoned. He slew the serpent of matter and the serpent of illusion. If the serpent symbology is studied, we shall find that three serpents are depicted, one standing for the serpent of matter, another for the serpent of illusion, and the third for the serpent of wisdom. This last serpent is only discovered when the two have been slain, when the other two have been slain. So we've got the serpent of matter, the serpent of illusion, and then the serpent of wisdom, which can only be sought after the first two are slain. This sense of duality is the first stage of the spiritual experience and colors the thoughts of all the great aspirants and mystics of the world. Note how St. Paul carries out as he wrestles with the problem. I find then a law when I would go when I would do good, evil is present with me. I'm starting again. I find then a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man, but I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So when with the mind I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh of law of sin. Romans 7:21-25. Christ our Lord. As Hercules grew up, we are told, great care was given to his education. He was trained in all possible accomplishments, and every faculty that he had was developed and organized. What is the lesson to be learned from this? It is the need to realize that every disciple, if he truly merits that name, must necessarily be a highly developed member of the human family. All three parts of this nature have to be unfolded. His mind must be well stocked and functioning. He must be, and he must know how to use it. And he must know how to use it. His sensitive emotional nature must be responsive to every type of contact. His physical body must be a fit medium of expression for the indwelling soul and equipped to undertake the tasks to which the man has pledged himself. There has been amongst aspirants for many centuries a tendency to decree and belittle the mind. They are apt to say glibly, the mind is the slayer of the real, and through the unrecognized mental inertia and laziness, to feel that the important thing is to have the heart nature developed. They regard the mind, with its capacity to analyze and discriminate, as a snare and a delusion. But this surely is an error. Knowledge of God is as necessary and as important as love of God. And this is the new age, with its new type of aspirant, will most assuredly demonstrate. Saintliness, sweetness, and a pleasing, loving disposition have their place on the sum total of the characteristics of the aspirant. But when linked to stupidity and an undeveloped mentality, they fail to be as useful as they could be when, when coupled to intelligence. When linked to a high grade intellect and with mental powers oriented to divine knowledge, they will produce that knower of God whose influence becomes worldwide and who can both love and teach his fellow men. So Hercules was trained in all accomplishments and could take his place with the thinkers of his time. We are told also that his height was 4 cubits, a symbolic way of expressing the fact that he had achieved his full growth in all departments of his fourfold personality. Man, we are told, is a cube, the city that stands 4 square. Physically, emotionally, and mentally, he was developed, and to these three factors is added a fourth, a soul in conscious possession of its mechanism, the developed personality. In conscious possession of its mechanism, the developed personality. Having achieved his growth and having been trained in all that the world could give him, we are told next that he proceeded to slay his teachers. He killed them all and got rid of them. Why? Because he had reached the point where he could stand on his own feet, forming his own conclusions, guiding his own life, and handling his own affairs. It was necessary, therefore, to rid himself of all those who sought to supervise him. He had to break away from authority and set out to find his own way, to make his own contacts with life. This is where many aspirants stand at this time. They are in possession of much theory. They have a relatively wide technical knowledge of the nature of the path and of what they should do upon it, but they do not as yet stand on their own feet and tread that path alone and unsupported. They need props and look for people to tell them what to do and what they should believe. We shall find in the third labor which Hercules performed, in the sign Gemini, that he was tested on this point and had to prove that he was justified in taking this step. He then makes the interesting discovery that he is not nearly so free nor so strong as in his youthful enthusiasm he fancied himself to be. When he reached the age of 18 years, we are told he slew a lion, which was devastating the countryside, and that he began to perform other public services, so that little by little his name came before the people. 18 is always a significant number. In it, we have the number 10, which is the number of personality perfection, plus the number 8, which we are told by some numerologists is the number of the Christ force. Infinity, right? It is the Christ force in the new cycle of discipleship seeking to express itself, which produces the condition of turmoil and the difficulties which characterize that stage. It is of value, perhaps, to note the following. Number 8 is the circle which we have already found to be the container for all the potencies out of which the light shall bring perfection, but now twisted or turned upon itself. The serpent no longer swallows its tail, thus completing its cycle, but writhes and twists in space, and out of the contortions of its writhings, it brings forth a perverted image of itself. But in 18, we have the vision of the straight and narrow path. The dot has unfolded into the one and become the axis around which our life turns. At this step, the initiate has faced this one divine truth and felt the mighty urge of the one life. Henceforth, he strives to make the twisted line subservient to the straight line. It is interesting to note also that we are told in the Kabbalah the 18th path is called the House of Influence, and from the midst of the investigation, the arcana and hidden sense are drawn forth, which dwell in its shade and which cling to the form that cause, in which cling to it from the cause of all causes. And this is from the Key of Destiny, H.A. and F.H. Curtis, page 246 to 247. And Sepper, oh, weird. Wow. I think that's how you spell Robert Sepper's last name. Sepper Yetzira, number 30. This is what Hercules, at the age of 18, is setting out to do. He must tread the path whereon all the hidden things can be brought forth into the light. He has reached the point where he can achieve knowledge of himself and begin to investigate the hidden forces of nature. This is the problem of all disciples. The next episode in his career is his marriage and the birth of 3 children, a symbolic way of expressing the truth that he made at one-ment with Psyche, the soul. From that union, the 3 aspects of the soul were born and began to manifest themselves. He began to know the nature of the spiritual will and to use it in the directing of his life. He experienced the workings of spiritual love and became conscious of the need to serve. Spiritual mind began to reveal truth to him, and he saw the underlying purpose. These are the higher correspondences with the three aspects of the personality: his mind, his emotional nature, and the physical body. We now discover him going through a very peculiar stage. We read in the ancient story that Hera, the psyche or the soul, drove him mad. She drove him mad through jealousy, and whilst in that curious state, we read that he slew his children and his friends and everyone connected with him. May it not be suggested in this connection that he passed through that unwholesome state common to all beginners on the path of discipleship, in which a morbid conscientiousness sacrifices everybody and everything to individual soul unfoldment? Wow. This is a most common fault with aspirants. Their sense of proportion is frequently at fault, and their sense of values distorted. The balance and, and sane life, which is the ideal for a son of God, is subordinated to a fanatical determination to make spiritual progress. Spiritual ambition sways the aspirant, and he becomes destructive, unbalanced, and usually exceedingly difficult to live with. There is much sound counsel in the biblical injunction: be not righteous overmuch. Why shouldest thou die? This stage is curiously exemplified for us on a large scale in the fanatical sacrifices made in the Orient and under the Inquisition and the Protestant covenanters of all who interpreted truth contrary to the conviction of a particular group of believers. So, man, I wonder if that's the case. When Hercules had recovered from his insanity, as he fortunately did, we are told that a new name was given to him, that a new abode was assigned to him, and that the 12 labors were laid upon him for fulfillment. We are told that these words were spoken to him. Quote, from this day forth, thy name shall no more be Alcides, but Heracles. In Tyrgeus shalt thou make thy abode, and there, serving, shalt thou accomplish thy labors. When this shall be accomplished, then thou shalt become one of the immortals. Greek and Roman Mythology, Volume 1, Fox. Having recovered his sanity, the focus of his life was changed. He no longer lived down where he lived before. The name of the soul became his name, and he was constantly reminded thereby that to express the glory of the soul was his mission. The 12 great labors that were to set the seal of accomplishment upon his life, and which would indicate his right to join the great group of immortals, were outlined to him, and he entered upon the way. We are told that in his person he symbolized the fixed cross in the heavens, formed by the 4 constellations Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Tradition tells us that he was physically bull-necked, as well as psychologically stubborn and ready to attack any problem and to rush blindly into any undertaking. Nothing could turn him from his purpose. And we shall see when we study the labors that he rushed headlong into them. Nothing deterred him. Nothing frightened him. And one pointedly he went his way. The ancient motto that has governed the activities of all active disciples became his, and his soul enjoined upon him the need of the power to do, the power to dare, the power to be silent, and the power to know. I've read that before. I've read that before. I've written that down before. The power to do, the power to dare, the power to be silent, and the power to know. The power to do is the motto of Taurus. They really are the movers and shakers of the world, you know? At least I've read that a few times. I'm a Taurus. And this is exemplified in his 12 labors. He symbolized Leo because he always wore the lion's skin as a proof of his courage, and the motto of that sign being the power to dare, no danger affrighted him, and no difficulty turned him back. Perhaps his outstanding achievement was what he accomplished in the sign Scorpio, for the great work was to overcome illusion. It was consummated and carried to completion in the sign Scorpio. The motto of that sign is silence. In Capricorn, he becomes the initiate. And this stage is always impossible until illusion has been overcome and the power of silence has been achieved. Therefore, when an infant in the cradle, unable to speak, he symbolized the high water mark of his achievement by strangling the two serpents. Right? So he was just like, let me get those out of the way before I can even speak. Then, at his maturity, he symbolized in himself Aquarius, the man, whose motto is to know. My girl, Chrissy. And, oh wait, he had a mind and used his intellect in active work and service. So, doing and daring in silence and with knowledge, he overcame all obstacles and passed undeterred from Aries to Pisces, starting in Aries as a humble aspirant and ending in Pisces as the all-knowing, victorious world savior. One point might be made here. In the history of Hercules, we are told nothing of what he ever said. We are only told of what he did. Through his deeds, he earned the right to speak. In the story of that greater Son of God, Jesus the Christ, we are told not only what he did, but also what he said. In the silence of Hercules and in the steady accomplishment, no matter by what failure and difficulty he might be faced, and in his power of endurance, we have shown to us the characteristics of the disciple. In the story of Jesus the Christ, through the demonstration of his power and by the words he spoke, we have the proofs of the initiate. And now, having reached maturity, having evolved the characteristics necessary for his mission, we read that the gods and goddesses did their utmost to equip him for the work that he had to do. He had received all that the world could give him. Now the powers of the soul were conferred upon him, and he had to learn how to use them. We read that Minerva gave him a beautiful robe, but as we never read of his wearing it, we can infer that something symbolic is intended. There are many cases in history where a robe is given. Joseph received a many-colored garment from his father. The mantle of Elijah descended upon Elisha. And the robe of Christ was divided up and quartered over by the soldiers at the crucifixion. It is the general opinion that the robe is the symbol of vocation. The vocation of Elijah had passed on to Elisha, The vocation of the Christ, the world Savior, came to an end at the crucifixion when he entered upon greater and more important work. The wisdom that was now realized by Hercules, because he had made that at one-ment with the soul, impressed upon him a sense of vocation. He was pledged to the spiritual life, and nothing could deter him. Vulcan gave him a golden breastplate, magnetic and protective, the symbol of energy emanating from high sources of spiritual power, which will enable the aspirant to undertake the 12 labors and go forward unafraid. From Neptune, the god of the waters, he received horses. The symbology underlying this gift is very interesting. Horses, as well as Neptune, the god of the waters and the deity of the watery emotional nature, stand for the capacity to be carried away by either a line of thought or an emotional reaction. This emotional, fluidic nature, with its sensitivity and its power to feel, when rightly used and subordinated to godlike purposes, is one of the greatest assets that the disciple possesses. With the aid of Neptune and the rapid steeds, Hercules could be en rapport with the most distant sphere in which his labors could be cast. Through emotional sensitivity and response, we too can be en rapport with the world in which our labors are cast. Equipped, therefore, with vocation, spiritual energy, and sensitivity, the gift of a sword that came from Mercury, the messenger of the gods, is of profound significance. For the sword of the symbol of the mind, which divides asunder, separates and cuts off. Through its use, Mercury added to the other gifts bestowed upon Hercules that of mental analysis and discrimination. We are told that Apollo, the sun god himself, became interested in Hercules and pondered what he could give him and would serve him. Finally, he gave him a bow and arrow, symbolizing the capacity to go straight to the goal, symbol too of that piercing illumination, that shaft of light which could irradiate the darkness of the path when needed. Thus equipped, Hercules stands ready for the great endeavor. And when all the gifts had been bestowed, and he stood with his divine equipment, we read of a most intriguing little detail. He went out and cut for himself a club. All these divine gifts were very lowly. All these divine gifts were very lovely and wonderful, but as yet he did not know how to use them. He sensed his vocation. He believed in spiritual energy. He was told that he possessed the horses of contact, and that if he would, the bow and arrow of illumination were his. But he liked the familiar club of his own fashioning. He would rather bludgeon his way through with what he knew he could use, than use the unfamiliar tools which had been given him. So he clutched his wooden club and set out upon his labors. Wow. So I'm at 1 minute and 28, or I'm sorry, 1 hour and 28 minutes right now. And that is just basically like the foreword. Or was that chapter 1 or was it just the foreword? And so I am going to call it, I guess there was just like another little bit, the Hercules, the disciple, the myth. Yeah, I think I am. And then we'll just get directly into the labors next time I come in here. So yeah, awesome. Thanks for everyone that stopped in today. And this is mind-blowing. I love it. I can't wait to read some more. So we'll check it out soon. And yeah, I love you all. So I will see you so very soon. Mwah. Until then, have wonderful, wonderful days. Thank you.